On the night of July 2nd, 2025, Chicago's River North District became the scene of a deadly, unsolved crime. At approximately 11 p.m., crowds gathered outside Artis Restaurant and Lounge following an album release party for local rapper Mellow Bucks. The celebration ended in chaos when a dark-colored SUV approached the front of the venue. Without warning, multiple shooters inside the vehicle opened fire on the crowd. The rapid spray of bullets struck 18 people within seconds. For victims, Leon Andrew Henry, 25, Devontae Terrell Williamson, 23, Taylor Walker, 26, and Aviance King, 27, were pronounced dead. 14 others suffered gunshot wounds, some critically. The assailants fled the scene, leaving behind shell casings from at least 2 different firearms. Despite surveillance footage, eyewitness reports, and recovered evidence, no arrests have been made. The Artis Lounge shooting is not an isolated event in Chicago's recent history. The same location, previously operating as Hush Lounge, was linked to a fatal shooting in 2022. The venue's troubled past only deepened suspicion and fueled speculation. Chicago police labeled the attack a deliberate and targeted act. However, with no suspects identified and a lack of public cooperation, the investigation remains at a standstill. Reports suggest possible links to personal disputes, gang activity, or direct connections to Mellow Buck Circle, but no official motive has been confirmed. What happened that night outside Artis Lounge was more than a random act of violence. It was a calculated attack that remains a mystery, one that left 4 dead, 14 wounded, and a city searching for answers. Welcome to True Crime Unmasked. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories. The show where we uncovers the disturbing crimes tearing communities apart and the haunting truths hidden behind closed doors. These are real stories, real individuals, real consequences. Stay tuned for more captivating stories. Now, let's begin.
In Chicago, police are searching for at least 1 gunman behind a deadly drive-by mass shooting. This happened late last night as people were leaving a party at a restaurant and lounge. You're looking now at video of the chaotic aftermath. Police say a dark-colored vehicle drove past the crowd that was standing outside. Someone in the car, possibly more than one person, fired into the crowd before driving away. 4 people were killed, 14 others were hurt. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster joins us now. Shaq, what do we know about this investigation? Does this look like it was a targeted shooting?
Well, we'll expect to hear from police and city leadership in just the next hour or so. All that they've said so far is that there is no suspect in custody and that this is, of course, something that is under investigation. This shooting took place around 11 p.m. last night outside of a listening party for Chicago rapper Mellow Bucks. They say after the event that started around 7 p.m., a dark-colored vehicle pulled up and began shooting into the crowd before speeding away. I want you to listen to what one witness said after the shooting.
It was absolute chaos, from people screaming to blood on the streets to people laying on the streets, just a massive police presence, just horrific, more than I've ever seen.
Leon Andrew Henry was a 25-year-old resident of Chicago. Little public information was available regarding his family, but preliminary reports identified him as a frequent presence in the city's nightlife scene. Henry was known among peers for his involvement in local events and was a familiar face in River North's club circuit. Community sources described him as a figure within Chicago's nightlife, not directly tied to known criminal activity, but well acquainted with individuals connected to the city's rap and entertainment industries. Devontae Terrell Williamson, age 23, was identified as the boyfriend of Chicago rapper Mellow Bucks. His connection to her placed him in the public eye following the incident, Williamson had a known presence within the Chicago nightlife and music scene, regularly attending events and private gatherings related to the rap industry. In the community, Williamson was seen as part of Mellow Buck's inner circle. Public perception of him was tied directly to his high-profile relationship. He maintained a curated image of loyalty and close association with the rapper, frequently appearing in social media posts and public appearances alongside her. Taylor Walker, a 26-year-old female, had limited public exposure prior to the shooting. She worked in the service industry and was linked socially to nightlife patrons within the River North area. Walker was not directly known to have any affiliations with Mellow Bucks, but reportedly attended the album release party on July 2nd. Walker's connections placed her among acquaintances of the other victims. While her personal history reflected a routine life within the service and entertainment sectors, her attendance at high-profile events connected her indirectly to figures of interest in the investigation. Aviance King, age 27, was a documented close friend of Mellow Bucks. King had an established background in Chicago's entertainment and nightlife scenes, known for organizing events and maintaining high-profile social connections. Her role as a social figure granted her access to Chicago's upper nightlife circles, making her a familiar face at significant events. The 14 injured individuals ranged in age from 21 to 32. Reports indicated a split of 13 women and 5 men among those wounded. The group included event attendees, friends of performers, and some individuals believed to be bystanders caught in the shooting's aftermath. Artis Restaurant and Lounge branded itself as a Black and LGBTQ-owned safe space within the River North District. The venue promoted inclusivity and sought to serve underrepresented communities. Over time, it became a popular nightlife destination for locals and visiting guests alike. The location previously housed Artis Lounge, which was shut down following a fatal shooting in 2022. That incident resulted in increased police scrutiny on the property and its operators. Mellow Bucks emerged as a rising rapper within Chicago's drill scene. Her real name, age, and exact origins were publicly limited, aligning with the common practice of privacy among emerging artists in the genre. Known for her aggressive style and bold lyrical content, Mellow Bucks gained a following within Chicago's underground rap circles. Her music often touched on themes of street life, loyalty, and personal struggles. Her public persona balanced the image of an up-and-coming artist with that of a figure tied to Chicago's volatile rap scene. Mellow Buck's personal connection to Devontae Williamson established the most direct link to the victims. Williamson, identified as her boyfriend, was reportedly part of her inner circle. Her friendship with Aviance King further deepened her connection to the victims. The presence of both individuals at the album release event reinforced their association. On the night of July 2nd, 2025, Artis Restaurant and Lounge in downtown Chicago was the venue for an album release party hosted by emerging Chicago rapper Mellow Bucks. The event drew a crowd of fans, industry acquaintances, and personal associates. Located on West Chicago Avenue, the lounge had established itself as a nightlife hotspot, often serving as a gathering space for Chicago's Black and LGBTQ communities. Guests began arriving around 9 p.m. According to surveillance footage and eyewitness reports, the crowd steadily grew over the next 2 hours. The atmosphere inside the venue was typical for a local album release. Loud music, heavy social media activity, and a visible presence of security personnel at the entrance. Attendees reported a festive environment with no obvious signs of conflict or tension leading up to the incident. By 11 p.m., the event was at its peak. Estimates suggest there were over 100 people inside and outside the lounge at the time. Witnesses stated that groups of attendees had begun to congregate near the entrance and on the sidewalk, taking photos and socializing as the night unfolded. The atmosphere remained calm until moments before the attack. At approximately 11:05 p.m., according to timestamp surveillance video, a dark-colored SUV approached the venue. The vehicle slowed as it neared the crowd gathered outside. Witnesses described the SUV as a black Chevrolet Tahoe or a similar large, dark SUV with tinted windows. The vehicle came to a near stop in front of the building. Without warning, multiple shooters inside the SUV opened fire on the crowd. Witness accounts and surveillance footage confirmed that the gunmen fired from inside the vehicle, targeting individuals in front of the lounge. Witnesses reported hearing dozens of rapid gunshots, followed by screaming and people scrambling for cover. The shooting lasted approximately 15 to 20 seconds. The attackers fired in quick succession before the SUV sped away from the scene. The chaotic nature of the attack made it difficult for anyone on the scene to comprehend the full extent of the situation in real time. Eyewitnesses consistently described the vehicle involved as a dark-colored SUV, most likely a Chevrolet Tahoe or a GMC Yukon, both commonly seen in Chicago. The SUV was described as having dark-tinted windows, making it impossible for observers to see inside or identify the shooters. Initial police reports indicated the possibility of 2 to 3 shooters firing from the passenger side of the vehicle. The exact number of assailants remains unconfirmed, but shell casing analysis later suggested the use of multiple firearms. The weapons used included at least 2 different calibers, 9mm round consistent with handgun fire and 5.56mm rounds associated with semi-automatic rifles. The variation in casing supported the theory that more than one weapon and shooter were involved. Law enforcement and crime scene investigators determined that the attack was most likely targeted, given the manner of execution. The assailants did not fire indiscriminately into the air or spray the area without focus. Instead, the pattern of bullet trajectory suggested deliberate aiming at individuals standing near the entrance. The speed and coordination of the attack left victims and bystanders with no time to react. The immediate aftermath was marked by confusion, screaming, and a frantic scramble for safety. Witnesses described people diving behind parked cars, running into nearby businesses, or dropping to the ground in an attempt to avoid gunfire. The SUV fled the scene within seconds after the shooting stopped. Within minutes, Chicago police and emergency responders arrived on the scene. First responders found 4 individuals deceased and 14 others injured, with varying degrees of severity. The wounded were transported to nearby hospitals, some in critical condition. Investigators secured the area, cordoning off the street and surrounding blocks. The primary evidence recovered at the scene included multiple shell casings of different calibers. Forensic analysis confirmed the presence of 9mm and 5.56mm casings, supporting the belief that both a handgun and a rifle were used during the attack. Surveillance footage from Artis Lounge and adjacent businesses was collected by the police. Video evidence captured the dark SUV's approach, the muzzle flashes from inside the vehicle, and its swift departure after the shooting. Investigators focused on enhancing the footage to identify possible license plates or distinguishing features of the vehicle. Witness statements were gathered from a broad range of sources: partygoers, nearby residents, business owners, and pedestrians. Many witnesses described the SUV in similar terms: a large, dark-colored vehicle with tinted windows, driven at a slow speed past the lounge before shots were fired. Several individuals recalled seeing the SUV circling the block in the minutes leading up to the attack, raising the possibility that the shooters were surveilling the area before carrying out the attack. Forensic teams conducted ballistic testing on the recovered shell casings. The goal was to determine whether the weapons used had been involved in prior criminal activity. Ballistics analysis also aimed to link the casings to potential suspects through registered firearms or known weapon usage in previous crimes. As of the latest reports, no conclusive ballistic matches have been made. Partygoers provided varied but consistent accounts of the moments before and during the attack. Many recalled hearing a sudden, rapid succession of gunfire and instinctively running or dropping to the ground. A few witnesses stated that they noticed the SUV moving slowly toward the venue, but did not perceive it as a threat until the shots began. Local residents and business owners also shared their experiences. Several shopkeepers described hearing loud gunfire bursts and witnessing people running in every direction. One nearby resident reported observing the SUV fleeing the scene at high speed immediately after the gunfire ceased. Descriptions of the shooter behavior were limited due to the attackers firing from within the SUV and the tinted windows obstructing clear views. However, the majority of witnesses agreed that the shooting appeared methodical and focused on a crowd directly outside the lounge. The combination of ballistic evidence, surveillance footage, and eyewitness testimony has been the foundation of the ongoing investigation. Despite the amount of information collected, no arrests have been made at the time of the most recent police briefings. Authorities continue to pursue leads based on the SUV's description and any potential connections to known criminal elements in the area. The morning following the incident, Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling held a press conference at CPD headquarters. His message condemned the violence, labeling it a cowardly and targeted attack on innocent lives. Snelling made it clear that the department was dedicating significant resources to identify and apprehend those responsible. He issued a public call for assistance, urging anyone with information, eyewitnesses, social media posts, videos, or any leads to come forward. Snelling stressed the option of anonymous tips via CPD's crime hotline, emphasizing community involvement as critical to breaking the silence often surrounding such incidents. Snelling also addressed concerns over public safety, particularly with the upcoming 4th of July weekend, a time historically marked by increased violence in Chicago. He assured residents that heightened patrols and special task forces will be deployed citywide, with special attention on nightlife districts and areas with recent violent incidents. Later that same day, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson released an official city statement condemning the shooting and expressing condolences to the victims' families. The mayor described the attack as an unacceptable act of violence that tears at the fabric of our city. Johnson announced the activation of emergency security measures, including increased law enforcement presence in nightlife areas, closer coordination with venue security, and a community alert system designed to provide rapid information in the event of public safety threats. Addressing the broader issue of gun violence, Johnson reaffirmed his administration's commitment to combating illegal firearms trafficking and supporting community outreach programs. He also acknowledged the systemic challenges, stating that solutions require cooperation between law enforcement, community leaders, and city agencies. In the immediate aftermath, local news outlets such as ABC7 Chicago, WGN News, and CBS Chicago provided extensive live coverage from the scene. Breaking news reports described the scene as chaotic, highlighting eyewitness accounts of people diving for cover amid a barrage of gunfire. Reporters interviewed community leaders, who called for calm but demanded accountability and transparency in the investigation. Local business owners in River North expressed concern over the impact of such violence on the area's nightlife economy, especially considering the prior violent incident at the same location when it operated as Artis Lounge in 2022. Chicago-based journalists raised questions about security measures at entertainment venues and the responsibilities of business owners in ensuring patron safety. The magnitude of the attack quickly drew attention from national media. CNN, NBC, ABC, and the Washington Post all ran headline stories on the shooting. International outlets like Al Jazeera focused on Chicago's long-standing struggles with gun violence, framing the event within the larger context of urban crime in America. Reports highlighted the contrast between Chicago's affluent business districts and the recurrent violent episodes disrupting its image. Analysts and commentators debated whether this event signaled a new escalation in organized street violence or reflected ongoing failures in policy enforcement. The coverage reinforced Chicago's reputation as a hotspot for gun-related incidents, despite recent declines in some crime statistics. On platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, news of the shooting spread rapidly. Hashtags such as #Artis Lounge shooting, #Chicago violence, and #Justice for the victims trended within hours. Public reactions varied. Many expressed mourning and anger, sharing condolences for victims and demanding stronger action against gun violence. Others used the event to call for policy reforms or criticize local leadership for perceived inaction. Predictably, misinformation and conspiracy theories also circulated. Some posts speculated about connections between the victims and gang activity without evidence, while others suggested the attack was a staged event aimed at tarnishing community businesses. Law enforcement issued a statement reminding the public to rely on verified information. Community leaders and neighborhood organizations in River North responded swiftly. Within 48 hours, several local groups organized a vigil near the scene, drawing a crowd of residents, activists, and clergy members. Speakers at the vigil included leaders from violence prevention organizations, local aldermen, and clergy who called for unity and denounced a cycle of retaliatory violence that has plagued parts of the city. Local businesses expressed both sorrow and concern, fearing the shooting would hurt their operations due to decreased foot traffic and public fear. Several owners collaborated with neighborhood associations to explore funding increased private security and surveillance. The shooting sent immediate shockwaves through Chicago's nightlife community. Promoters, club owners, and event organizers faced mounting pressure to enhance security at venues. Discussions surfaced around implementing stricter entrance screenings, expanding surveillance coverage, and working more closely with CPD. Patrons voiced hesitation about attending nightlife events in River North and neighboring areas. Some events scheduled for the following weekend were canceled or postponed in response to heightened fears. The Chicago Hospitality Association called for citywide meetings to address public safety concerns specific to entertainment venues. Families of the deceased publicly called for justice in statements delivered through attorneys and at press events. Several families hired legal representation to monitor the police investigation and ensure accountability. Mothers and relatives of the victims held a joint press conference, appealing to the public for information that could lead to arrests. They demanded transparency from CPD and city officials about investigation progress. Some families indicated intentions to pursue civil action against the lounge, citing possible negligence in security measures. In response to the shooting, community organizations intensified efforts against gun violence. Local advocacy groups organized protests, community forums, and neighborhood patrols to emphasize their call for safer streets. The incident reinvigorated the anti-gun violence movement in Chicago, with activists leveraging media attention to push for legislative change and better support for affected communities. City-led initiatives included expanding funding for violence interruption programs and partnerships with nonprofit organizations dedicated to community outreach. Following the shooting, Mellow Bucks faced scrutiny both as a public figure and a central figure in the social circle linked to the victims. Public perception divided. Some criticized her alleged connections to individuals potentially involved in street violence, while others defended her as a victim of circumstance. Mellow Bucks released a public statement expressing heartbreak over the loss of friends and condemning the violence. She emphasized her non-involvement in any illegal activities and called for justice. In the aftermath, some of her planned performances were canceled or rescheduled. She later released a song addressing the tragedy, which sparked mixed reactions. Some saw it as a tribute, others as opportunistic. If this story touched you deeply and made you question what's real, be sure to tap the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more gripping true crime stories that unravel the hidden truths behind heartbreaking cases, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest episodes, investigations, and powerful conversations. Thank you for joining us on this journey to uncover the truth and fight for justice. Together, we can shine a light where it's needed most. Stay safe, stay alert, and we'll see you in the next story.